In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Nathan Lutz, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, the podcast where we watch movies, then talk about them. I'm your host, Chad Robinson, and joining me today for a very special bonus episode is my good friend and co-host, Dustin Melbardis. How are you, Dustin?
Bonus! I'm very good. Excited for this episode. This is going to be a good one, y'all.
Yeah, bonus content. We're celebrating some holidays today. Going to be talking about some themes here. And there might be a creature or two popping up in our movies. So, Dustin, quick warm-up question. What is your favorite movie featuring a magical creature?
I had two to choose from. And the first thing that popped into my head was Labyrinth, with Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie. But what I realized is that really it's Jim Henson's magic putting these creatures on screen. Not many of them are magical themselves. Jareth the Goblin King has some magic. But I realized that my second choice and my official choice for this question is Pan's Labyrinth from 2006, Guillermo del Toro. I think the scene everyone remembers from that movie is the pale man who puts the eyes into his palms and holds them up to his forehead to see. That will stay with me forever. Kudos to Doug Jones, who played that guy. He played the lead in The Shape of Water. Like, everything about that was so magical to me and just sticks with me even, 15 years later.
I love everything about that pick. The Pale Man that's fantastic. And you're right, that is the imagery that sticks with me. We did Pan's Labyrinth. Check it out. Great episode, great host, but yeah, fantastic movie. Won a lot of awards at our year end. For me, I think it's got to be, and Dustin, you represented me in the 2011 Best of podcast because I couldn't make it, Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Specifically, they never got to see a mermaid, and the mermaid showing up at the very end, spoilers, I guess, that makes me the happiest of all. So the mermaid in Cabin in the Woods is my favorite magical creature.
A magical movie, and genre shifting. It hits all the right notes.
Yes.
And enough of a budget to really make what they show you in that movie seem really good.
Oh my goodness. The elevator, as soon as the elevator dings open and all the magical creatures fly out, that is pure cinema. That is what I want. Inject that straight into my veins. Yes.
Yes, please.
We'll go to our standard question then. Dustin, have you watched any new movies since like 3 days ago when we last recorded our podcast?
Yeah, here's a little happening for me. One of my staffers on site, we talk about movies in the 10 or 15 minutes we have in overlap before I head home for the evening. And he said, "Man, I really liked that Dune movie." Of course, I couldn't pass up an opportunity to tell us about our the 1984 our episode of the Lynch Dune. And so he's like, "Yeah, I went and bought it, but all I wanted is the digital copy." So I'm holding up the physical copy right now. He just gave it to me. He's like, "Yeah, all I want is digital. You haven't seen it yet? Go watch." So I did watch it. I'm going to reserve any conversation about it until I run into old Mr. Fry.
I was going to say, don't break Brian Fry's heart.
And it's now physically the only movie I own, because I own no movies. But I've got one now.
Poor lucky number 11.
It's gone. Who knows where it is?
So, we've warmed up. Dustin, can you tell us what movie we are going to be covering today?
Well, from 1993, Leprechaun.
Oh, very good. Feeling lucky. That's right. Released in 1993. It was actually filmed like 2 years prior. Took a while to get released. It has a whopping $1 million budget. It grossed $8.5 million, a really good return. That's a good enough for 126th in the box office, placed ahead of Lost in Yonkers, never heard of it, and behind Strictly Ballroom, also never heard of it. But you know what I have heard, and there's an excellent podcast of? Jurassic Park. That was the #1 movie in 1993. IMDb gives Leprechaun a whopping 4.8. Gets better news. Rotten Tomatoes, 27% with the critics, with a slightly better 32% audience score. It wins nothing.
Yes,
So, I mean, we come off the Valentine's Day episode with a lot of raspberries, so I guess winning nothing can sometimes be better. So, Dustin, had you seen 1993's Leprechaun?
I really like that attitude of perhaps winning nothing is better.
That's what we go for in the podcast.
Yeah. Perhaps the gray obscurity is the best possible option. Well, I will say I watched this in the 90s as a child. It was on at Uncle Dave's house or something, and intriguing enough to like sit down and catch a little bit of it. And then I had seen little bits of, we know this is very popular as it spawned its sequels. So I've seen little bits of Into Hood, I've seen little bits of In Space. I've rewatched the scene in the casino one. There's different little spots, right? But as far as like sitting down and watching the whole movie like critically, this is the first time in 20 years. So I was excited to get back to it. This is. I watched it twice in the last 48 hours, and no matter what like its scores are or its grades are, I felt like this I could watch all the time. Like it's just it is extremely fun, and I'm not using fun as like, oh, this saves the movie from being bad based on our scores and stuff, but I expected it to be corny, and it's not like incredibly corny. It's just like, this is kind of exactly what you expect from this, and enjoyable. Yeah,
I mean, the movie is about a killer leprechaun, so set your expectations accordingly. For me, I've seen Leprechaun, and like you, I went back probably 2 years ago and revisited it. It'd been a while since I'd seen this series. And I said, oh my goodness, there are 8 movies in this franchise. So I set out to watch every Leprechaun movie, and with mixed results. But we're here to talk about 1993's Leprechaun, so I'm like you. This isn't a cinematic masterpiece, but I enjoy it. It makes me happy. It makes me smile. Warwick Davis is a huge part of my childhood with Willow, and he's, of course, Wicket from Return of the Jedi. So I love Warwick Davis in all forms. I was happy to get this movie in. I was happy for your availability to squeeze this in as a bonus episodes.
Well, and yeah, it's fun. Leprechaun, the character, likes to have fun. I think this was kind of in an era where we had some fun-loving little monsters, right? Like
Leprechaun.
Yeah, like gremlins like to have fun. Ghoulies like to have fun.
Critters
like to have fun. And learning a little bit about how the idea for the movie changed from horror to like horror comedy. And then Warwick Davis's input into the character. It's almost as if whatever path was taken, as winding as it was to get to our final product, it almost couldn't have been planned any better, because what we ended up with was exactly what we need out of Leprechaun.
So, with that being said, we are going to break down the plot of Leprechaun. If you're worried about spoilers of the movie Leprechaun, go watch it. If not, we will be back after a short ad break.
What happens when 2 modern film fans go back and rewatch all the old classic films from yesteryear to see if they hold up? You get the Classic Film Jerks podcast. Find the Classic Film Jerks podcast on all the major platforms.
Welcome to the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. I'm Ricky.
I'm Grayson.
And every week we review a movie from the past and reflect on things we missed, things we loved, and things we want to see again.
Yeah, because we believe any movie worth watching is worth watching again.
So if you like films, friendship, and a lot of callbacks,
I mean, just so many callbacks,
then subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever RSS feeds go for like-minded movie-loving individuals. Like you.
And we're back. So final warning, if you want to check out 1993's Leprechaun, put us on pause, go check it out. It's not a long movie. If not, I'm going to go spoil it for you. An Irishman by the name of Dan O'Grady returns to North Dakota to his home after stealing a pot of gold from a leprechaun he interrogated. That's a sentence. Anyways, he discovers the leprechaun isn't cool with the theft and his wife gets murdered. Dan traps the leprechaun in a crate with a 4-leaf clover. Logic checks out. But he has a stroke before he can burn the creature. 10 years later, a father and teenage daughter rent the same house. Contract workers Nathan Murphy, his 10-year-old brother Alex, and slow friend Ozzy help fix up the place. Ozzy brushes the clover off the crate and frees the leprechaun. After a brief encounter, Ozzy chases after a rainbow to find a pot of gold, and Alex follows. They find a bag of 100 coins, and in order to test their authenticity, Ozzy bites one and then accidentally swallows it. Meanwhile, the father is bitten by a leprechaun and sent to the hospital. Ozzy and Alex pawn some of the gold, and the leprechaun kills the shop owner with a pogo stick, which is awesome. Contractor Nathan is injured by a bear trap, and the leprechaun torments the group. Daughter Tori gives the leprechaun back his gold and declares the whole situation over, but doesn't realize the last piece is in Ozzy's belly. She visits the nursing home that houses Dan O'Grady, but is once again attacked by the creature. Dan's body is thrown down an elevator shaft, but before dying, tells Tori that a 4-leaf clover is the only thing that can defeat the leprechaun. She returns to the farmhouse to search for a clover, and Ozzy is critically wounded. Alex fires the found 4-leaf clover into the leprechaun's mouth with a slingshot before Nathan pours gasoline in a well and lights it on fire. Is this the last we'll hear from the leprechaun? Or is this plot summary good enough to spawn 7 sequels? Only time will tell.
That's good. There wasn't enough time in this movie to tell the whole story of Leprechaun.
Yeah, and I apologize to our podcast listeners if we get some noise in the background. We are getting new floors, so you may hear an intermittent thud. It is not a leprechaun attempting to escape a crate. It is 2 nice gentlemen hammering on my floor. So, Dustin, what do you think of doing a movie with usually at this time, a happy-go-lucky creature like a leprechaun? What do you think about that?
Well, I put some thought into the basis for the movie, which is strictly titled, just very simple, Leprechaun. And it made me think, like, are leprechauns evil? What I learned was that, like, leprechauns are seemingly fun-loving tricksters and pranksters. I think we absolutely get that from this portrayal. What do we know about leprechauns? We know related that at the end of the rainbow is where there's a crock of gold, and that probably belongs to a leprechaun. But in our first 2 minutes of this movie, we see Warwick Davis's leprechaun, who I'm actually going to call Lep for the rest of this episode, because he refers to himself as just shortens leprechaun. I suppose he doesn't have a name. He is 600 years old. He would have picked one up along the way. But the first rhyme he gives is something about, like, if you steal my gold, you won't live through the night. It's almost as if he's expecting people to be after it. And it reminded me of, like, the lore of dragons, that they're covetous and they want to hoard, they want to keep their stuff. But in the lore, tell me if you've heard the same thing, doesn't it seem like if you're clever enough to catch a leprechaun or somehow find the gold, that seemingly they would try to make a trade with you, or do some way to get their gold back, as opposed to immediately turning violent.
Right. Yeah, this is a bit of a twist because Dan O'Grady did what you're supposed to do with leprechauns if they actually existed, is to catch them and basically say, I will trade your life for gold, with the implicit threat, I guess, that you're going to murder the leprechaun otherwise. I don't know how that works. But yes, you catch a leprechaun, that's what we tell our kids. They will give you gold.
Yeah, and Dan O'Grady does catch one. They imply that there was a deal being made. He even implies like he follows the rules. This gold is mine. You're fine. But I think what we have here is like, this is not your traditional leprechaun. This guy is still a prankster and a trickster, but I guess a poor sport we can start with, and also more violent than you would expect from our other leprechauns. Now, from other lore sources, I found that like, maybe the worst thing they would ever do is like they'd steal your children away. But,
the worst. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, right. I said that as if like, oh, no big deal. But like, the way I'm thinking about it is like Dan O'Grady picked the wrong leprechaun to catch. It would have resulted in riches for anyone else, but he just picked the wrong one. And it's just unfortunate for our main cast in this movie to be associated with the sins of Dan, because there's no family tie. It's merely, you're in my presence, I feel slighted, I want my gold back, I'm going to bite your ear off.
And Dustin, you mentioned dragons, but what I thought of, and you're a D&D player, so you may not associate them with happy Disney things either, but fairies. Right. Fairies and fays. They are something, if you talk to someone of Irish descent, they are like, these creatures are to be feared. They will mess you up. And we're in the West, the world of Disney, where fairies are magical and they're nice and they sprinkle pixie dust. No, they will murder you in cold blood. So I like this twist. I want evil fairies movies. I want traditional folklore of fairies murdering small children,
That's what we want. Yeah, listeners, that's what we want, specifically Chad and I.
Yes. When you get a Dustin and Chad podcast, we want children to be injured, I guess.
Hide your kids. Yes. This is a fun villain to encounter. I would say understanding his goal is very clearly given to you. He wants his gold back. And poor Ozzy, making the mistake of swallowing one piece. We see, and later on, it's already in the plot summary, but we see that Tori gives the leprechaun the gold back, and it's seemingly like, all right, I think we're good.
Right.
Ozzy, who is a fan favorite Ozzy, he seems to pick up on the idea that this leprechaun is bad. Maybe he's scared of the thing, which I suppose you would be, right? Even if it were Lucky, the Lucky Charms leprechaun, seeing something like that for real would still freak you out. Like, you have to like buy in to the narrative. I'm like, it would still freak you out. But he very clearly says, I want to shine your shoes and I want my gold. Okay, cool. I don't feel like you intend on murdering me. But immediately we get like the idea like, oh no, this is a bad leper.
Yeah, Ozzy was pretty chill. I mean, there is the slow realization that there's a bit of menace behind the leprechaun. But yeah, when he pops out of that box, he was faking being, was it a cat, I think, that Ozzy goes down to investigate, or a child's? I think it was a child. But yeah, Ozzy's just like, it's perfectly normal for a small man to jump out of a box. This is a Tuesday for me. So yeah. And you mentioned Lucky Charms. I enjoy that. This was inspired. This should tell you everything you need to know about this movie. This was inspired by Lucky Charms commercials, and it was also influenced heavily by one of my favorites, Critters. So Now, we have our writer and director, Mark Jones. He's watching Lucky Charms commercials, and it's like, what if that guy, instead of giving cereal to children, murdered them? And it starts off as this just horrible creature. And it works its way into comedy realm.
You know, he does hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
But if we were going to look at the entirety, Leah, Dan O'Grady's wife, falls down the stairs out of fear. She's not pushed. The line that Leprechaun says is, "I want me gold." I think that's all he says. She falls down the stairs. I do like the idea of, let's look at like what the Leprechaun's powers are, and like and like along with who he kills. So Leah goes down. Officer Trippett is killed. Who, I guess Dan eventually he gets him back way later, but none of our main cast actually die.
No, we have small children, and there's an aversion to doing that.
Right.
So Nathan was probably our prime candidate, but he's the hunky love interest who actually gets to live. So Joe is our only other victim. There's a 4-person body count. Joe is the pawn shop owner.
That's right. Yeah, Joe's Coins. In rural South Dakota, in rural North Dakota, where you might have one gas station, one grocery store, one diner, you also got to have your coin collector shop. And we all know this, so it doesn't, that's not going to separate you from reality. But he is killed in a fantastic way.
Let's not confuse North Dakota for New Mexico, which Jennifer Aniston says.
Yes.
Yes, those two states are very similar in both climate and environment.
Beautiful opening shot, by the way, of those rolling hills.
Right?
Tree-covered hills. I didn't know where they were going to end up being, but so the Leprechaun has these powers. It can seemingly teleport. Chime in when you think I'm getting something wrong. It can seemingly teleport. We see it close a door from distance, meaning he's got some type of psychokinesis.
But he can't lock it.
Because
they just immediately open. It's like, well, that was minorly inconvenient.
Right. And then he also goes on to explain that, like, me powers are weak. Right. Otherwise, either he would have used psychokinesis to keep the door shut, or he would have locked it. Either way, minor inconvenience power. He seemingly... Now, we know that he's a cobbler by trade.
Yes. I love that about him.
Well, and that's like a Leprechaun lore thing, is that they shoemakers, like that's one of the things they like to do. But like also the thing about needing to keep shoes clean, that compulsion, I feel like they're pulling a little bit from Eastern European vampire numeric like compulsion to count. It's why Count Von Count from Sesame Street. I think you knew that. I
love that you are bringing this up. Please continue.
Yeah. So this compulsion to like clean shoes does allow them to like make a break at one point. But like, so psychokinesis and he really like maybe tinkering a little bit with that go-kart with the pitchfork that he makes. Maybe that's something that he can do. But he's also he really likes to play. I think that about covers it. Can you think of anything else that, as far as like his limbs operate without being attached to his body?
Yes,
that's something
hand
separate.
Crawl.
Yeah, and seemingly operate on their own. Is there anything else that this guy can do?
I don't think. It seems like his powers in this iteration are dependent on gold. Now it changes in different iterations whether he has something else associated with him, whether it's a pendant or like Leprechaun in the Hood, it requires a pendant. So he does have mind control powers, and he does have some form of ventriloquism.
There we go.
He mimics the cop's voice. He mimics Mrs. O'Grady's voice, and he's doing like a puppeteer routine with Mrs. O'Grady, which is a great scene. But we see a weaker, limited Leprechaun here, so we don't get to see that full spectrum. He says, I need my gold back to have my powers. What I really wanted when he had 99 gold, I wanted to see, the Megazord of Leprechaun, and we just don't get to see that. But,
I like that idea. I forgot about the mimicry. Perfect mimicry. And this movie uses it so well when it's needed. It's more like psychological torture to Dan when he's puppeting Leah, his dead wife.
Yes.
But he also uses it as like a little girl's voice for the nursery rhymes. He can sound like a cat. He also does it to keep the cops away by mimicking Deputy Trippett in responding back to the sheriff. Like, hey, I'll be there in less than 3 minutes. I got it covered. And I think there might be one other one in the movie where he like perfectly mimics someone's voice. And I thought to myself, all right, this is 93. The last very scary villain to also have perfect mimicry was the T-1000 2 years earlier for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, whereas he answers the phone and mimics the, I think, stepmom character or something like that. But I thought, like, this is really, like, the fact that it comes up over and over and it works the way he needs it to is really good. I think he also does it on the other side of the phone line with Tori or something else. I just don't remember. But like he uses every trick in his book, and that I think is what makes Leprechaun fun. Is he's got a lot of tricks in the book, and he will use them. He will play with them. He's going to teleport all the way to you in your Jeep, but not into the back seat. He's going to teleport to you while he's on roller skates, and he's going to start skitching on your bumper. That's what makes Leprechaun fun.
And we get the leprechaun-sized hole in the fence, Wile E. Coyote, straight out of Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And that's great. And you mentioned tricks. I think that's part of what makes this movie so fun for me, because he just has so many tricks. He's chasing people in a high-speed tricycle. He's got a magical... it's like a tank. The thing just punts a car. It's this miniature tank, is what I'm going to call it. He's singing nursery rhymes as he's jumping on a pogo stick about to impale people. He's got another tiny little car. He kills a cop in the woods during a game of hide and seek. This entire movie is focused around, I think a lot of Peter Dinklage. He talks about how he doesn't want to do a role as a little person or a dwarf. Like that be the role. He wants it to be just, I want to play a character and then have that character's trait, they happen to be short. So
right.
They're playing with this, but I don't think they're punching down on Warwick Davis. I don't think this would be a film it's not making short jokes. It's just using the height of the leprechaun for things that he would use. So I think it was a lot of fun for me to see all the bag of tricks that he could come out with.
Yeah, they're supposed to be fun-loving, and I think that becomes the primary characteristic of him is playing with his food in a way, even though he doesn't end up, killing them all. Like he enjoys this, and he plays a member of a race of wee folk, and it's not as if that is a hindrance to what he's trying to do. I don't believe.
Right.
He's still incredibly fast, especially with those. This is the first knock I'll make against the costume design. Unfortunately, I don't think you needed to give him those particular shoes. I think Warwick Davis. Kudos to him for doing all of many of his own stunts in the movie. But those shoes with maybe a 3-inch heel on them really made it seem as if it was a struggle for him to walk in them. Whereas I feel like he could have been slightly more agile without those shoes. His height also allows us to get some cool low to the ground POV shots from the leprechaun's point of view. Like, what is he about to hunt down?
They did have to change some shots, so we haven't talked about it a lot, but this is Jennifer Aniston's film debut, but they had to change some of the shots, so she is running in like Baywatch slow motion in real life because Warwick Davis in these shoes was having problems keeping up. So in order for him to look like he was chasing her down in a fashion that made sense, that was terrifying, they had to slow Jennifer Aniston down.
Yeah.
You're right. And, you know, Jennifer Aniston, Warwick Davis kind of went after Jennifer Aniston for a while, saying, admit this movie exists. Admit this movie exists. Are you embarrassed about it? Because she hit Friends. She hit the Friends lottery, and her career just blew up. And subsequently, this movie got attention. The cover was changed. It used to just feature Warwick Davis's face with the Leprechaun, and then they added Jennifer Aniston in green once she blew up. And she's come back to it, and she said, yes, this was my first film. I'm not embarrassed of the film. I'm embarrassed of my acting. She's embarrassed of how her career started as far as her acting performance. And I think that's justified. Watching about halfway through, like, she looks great, but this is not a great acting performance. Granted, a lot of her lines are like, that thing is a leprechaun and there's got to be a way to kill it. That's a tough line to say with any form of conviction.
Okay, so I'm glad I had a backup best quote, because the delivery of that line, when that's the line you have to work with, that was my candidate for best quote of the movie, because it like very much exemplified, like, they made I can't say they polished a turd, but they took something that was like, could have just been blah, and made it at least relevant enough to be fun to revisit. And so, Ozzy, you can't go out there. That thing is a leprechaun, and we've got to find a way to stop it, was definitely like one of my favorite things that she said. So I understand. I don't think she was given a big amount of, or a great amount of dynamic lines.
No.
That's too bad. I still felt like, and hey, neither was Nathan. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, man.
Nathan essentially was just like, I'm an exposition machine gun. I'm going to say exactly what's on the screen. If you fell asleep for 5 minutes, I'm going to catch you up real quick. Like,
well, he's got to bounce off the most like asinine lines, because they're trying to make Jennifer Aniston this fish out of water character.
Yes.
She's the big city girl who's found herself in North Dakota. So she's spitting out lines like, Nathan doesn't say anything offensive, but she gives him a big, hey, it's the 90s, pal, and women are women, and like, she has a lot of other things that are just out of nowhere. Well, I don't eat meat, and I don't kill living things. I feel very strongly about that, and the dude's just trying to chill and get her dinner. Like, they might serve salad or pie, I don't know, take a chill pill.
Yeah, well, and she's wearing those sweet LA Gear kicks. That,
yes.
But he says, "Oh, that must be." He's talking about dead cow. Look at your shoes.
Faux leather, yeah.
But there's no way those things are made out of anything else but like old recycled erasers, whatever those are made of. Yeah, she is sort of like this fish out of water. She very quickly wants to leave the house. This isn't my way of living. I'm going to go get a hotel. I'm not afraid of the basement. I'm not afraid of spiders. And then this handsome guy is here. Who is a handsome guy? I haven't seen him in anything else, actually.
No, I looked it up. I had the same thought of, like, this is a handsome guy in an unfortunate movie. Have you done anything else? And it's not great.
Yeah. So Ken Olandt, and like, let me take this moment just to say, like, this movie is, in the daytime, like, really pretty, and in the nighttime, like, well shot. I love the colors in this movie. I mean, he's wearing, I think, like, purple shirt with some very light, they're not quite acid wash jeans, but like, and then like a vest kind of hanging over. Alex is wearing that yellow and red striped shirt. Ozzy's wearing the overalls with the very, these are terrible painter's clothes.
Right.
But like the overalls with the kind of the fun pattern shirt underneath, which is also like stained blue, painted blue from earlier. I love the color on these guys, but like his role, I really like how there is a connection between Tori and Nathan, but it's just a spark, and that's it. There's not a hard push towards some type of romance, I believe his presence is the only reason that Tori even decides to stay. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she's batting her eyes at him constantly and making excuses to be alone with him. But you're right, there is no resolution. They don't hug it out in the end and have a big romantic kiss. It's, hey, my dad's out of the hospital now. He got bitten by something that he still believes is a cat.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I grew up in West Virginia. If there is something in a hole, under no circumstance do you stick your hand down that hole. You don't know what's in there. And in this case, it was a bitey leprechaun.
Thank you for that. I would have taken time to mention the exact same thing. This guy...
This has been our rural PSA.
Seriously, kids, adults, Aussies, don't put your hand into a hole you can't see. No matter whether it's a bitey leprechaun or not, something, it lives in there, regardless of how small or big, is going to bite you or sting you or scratch you. It's going to happen. So, I guess we know that they're from LA, and we know that they bought the house. They bought it for a steal. But I guess he makes it seem as if like he's eager to kind of have this property out in North Dakota, but there's no indication that he came from the woods or he knows anything more that he's doing. He's just more optimistic about it. Would you agree with that? Like it's not like he knows how to live on the ranch or the farm. He made the dumb mistake because maybe he's like an LA guy too.
Yeah, there really is no exposition as to why they're out there. It's not like, hey, I've been really sad since your mom left or your mom died, or I just need to start over. We get none of that. We just get whiny teenage daughter, which Jennifer Aniston is a little too old to be playing a teenage daughter in this. But yeah, she's complaining about it. It's just like, it's going to be fine. But we never get that reason. And let's face it, Leprechaun's not here to give us a ton of backstory and exposition, except for the leprechaun, and that's all we get. And he does have a name. Looking at the cast, you said I don't know that he has a name. I didn't know this until staring at the cast list right now. It's Lubden, so I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Lubden the leprechaun. Yeah,
they just take the town Dublin and switch a couple consonants.
Lubdan. I don't know what's going on there, but he's the leprechaun. It's one of those things where it's just like naming the Force midichlorians. Don't do it.
Don't do that. So, yeah, he's just as menacing without a name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, right. So we have the exposition for why the leprechaun is there. How do you like the inclusion of this? Four-leaf clover having power over them. I think that may have been invented for this movie, or at least it was new to me. I thought it was pretty cool.
I like that. You need a way to stop the leprechaun, and it's got to be with some form of magical talisman, enchantment, or even his own gold. So I like the four-leaf clover idea. I like that you could set it on a crate, and it just acts as a barrier. It's like pouring salt. In certain horror franchises, if you pour salt in the room, the demons can't get you.
Right.
So in his case, it's something prevalent in his homeland. This is what protects you. It brings you luck. So yeah, I like turning that on its head and using it as a weapon. That was... I'm not one for small children in movies, but Alex's scene, which was brought out, do you know why that line, which we cannot utter on the podcast, was changed?
Yeah. Wait, why it was changed? I don't know what the line initially was. I mean, I know what the line ends up being in the movie.
So the line was initially, your luck just ran out. So it's punny. But... And I love everything I'm about to tell you because this is just ridiculous. So the leprechaun finds and eats cereal in the movie. And it was initially Lucky Charms. General Mills gave them full permission. They're like, yeah, go ahead with our cereal. But after they saw the finished film, they revoked that permission.
No.
So that's why we see that goofy parody box that's an obvious spoof.
Lucky Stripes or whatever, yeah.
And because we're petty and it's this type of movie, the line is changed from your luck just ran out to F you, Lucky Charms. Except it's a hard F. So yes, this is the type of petty we are bringing to Leprechaun. So we're taking shots at Big Cereal.
Is it enough to raise my star rating mid-episode? I did notice how it was specifically not Lucky Charms in the cabinet, and
yes.
I do like that last line, though. I have an idea for how that sort of the movie could resolve a little differently. The thing with the like kind of weaponizing the 4-leaf clover, or using it just to keep him in a box for 10 years. Yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, there's got to be some way, whether it's a talisman or some type of way. The classic line, I've brought it up before, but from Predator, if it bleeds, we can kill it. If you can figure out some way to hurt it, it means you can figure out a way to get rid of it and kill it. And Dan O'Grady knew this and had a clover. Apparently, he also grew the clover. But I think that's really fun, and I would have liked that reveal to maybe have come from Dan while he's in the nursing home, as opposed to like us kind of knowing something about it early. But I'm not here to pick the movie apart. I wanted to mention that clover aspect was fun. I remembered one of the things I wanted to bring up about the Leprechaun's powers was, I know that like in X-Men or other superhero movies, particularly X-Men though, every mutant's mutation is unique, and you only have one. And I think it was in the first Deadpool, no, maybe the second Deadpool movie, where we meet someone who has a chance to like change or see the probabilities of something happening. I believe her name is Domino. Does that sound right, Pat? Or
yes.
Are you? So, if the Leprechaun's power is somehow like bending luck to be like, oh, that's unfortunate that happened, we see Nathan trip over a very small oil drum and land in a bear trap. There is no explanation, there's no connection to that being done by the Leprechaun. Give us 30 seconds of him like shoot a little green energy bolt to make the baseball move 3 inches, so he slips on it into a bear trap that then moves 5 inches to catch him. That would, I think, I'm not going to say elevate the movie, but at least it would like connect some things as to what can the Leprechaun actually do. And I think there's other stuff that like you could play around with. What makes the Leprechaun particularly Irish? Here, this actually leads to like a criticism I wanted to bring up. Did you feel like, aside from using the word leprechaun, that they did anything to make it seem like more Irish at all? I don't even think he had a good accent. I believe with an hour of research, they could have come up with some Irish phrases or Irish sayings or anything aside from an empty bottle of Jameson whiskey that, like, I feel like they just kind of missed the mark there.
Yeah, you do notice with the O'Grady's, Mrs. O'Grady goes out of her way to say their last name a lot. Like, we're going to emphasize how Irish we are. I'm like, yeah, we get it. You know, are you going to go talk about your potato patch and then go have a drink? What, like, you're trying to reinforce a bunch of stereotypes. We get it. Yeah, I mean, as far as the Leprechaun, I don't know, and this is funny because my family is Irish. I don't know how you Irish this up without going into just cheesy stereotype.
Way more stereotype, yeah. So, this is something I wanted to present to you here, which was that I think the only thing we really get from the lines uttered by the Leprechaun, there's a couple lines that are pretty fun. A lot of them are like nursery rhyme style, and I don't know a nursery rhyme with a leprechaun in it. I know a lot of nursery rhymes, and I know the idea of like a nursery rhyme world where everything's twisted, and like that could be potentially very scary, and I think there have been examples of this. But like, you know, ring around the rosy, I'm gonna hit you with a go-kart and flip your truck. Like,
yes.
All right, so now we're focusing on fairy tale lines instead of Irish lines. So I came up with a couple. Tell me what you think about these. I looked up like some Irish phrases. One of them is, "May the road rise up to meet you." Wouldn't it be fun to see, like, as they're running away, or maybe as the officer's running away, he lets out a, "Oh, may the road rise up to meet you," and he just flicks his finger, and like a stump or like the sidewalk raises just a little bit to make them trip and like hit their head. Right?
I like it.
So
I do.
That's an idea. I've been to Ireland, and this is the only one I remember that was actually said, was people would say, like, "What's the crack? What's the crack?" And some people say that the American slang, "What's crackin'? What's crack-a-lackin'?" comes from this, "What's the crack?" For this kind of genre of Leprechaun, maybe this would be like for a later sequel, like, "What's the crack?" And then like he, hit someone in the butt with a shovel. Like, I can definitely see like that's something he would do. I've got some other ones here. "Only a stepmother would blame you." Like, if he kills someone insignificant, he could be cheesing towards the camera and saying, "Oh, don't be mad at the leprechaun. Only a stepmother would blame me." There's some other ones. This is just a saying everyone should say more. "Christ on a bike."
Yes, he could absolutely say that, or have one of the police officers be Irish and say it while he's going on the tricycle. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. "Looks like I'm on me, Todd." He's like, "I'm on my own," and he is. He's on his own all the time. Look at the state of you. Like, this took me 8 minutes to find these.
Yes, but you have the internet.
Okay. Okay, absolutely fair. I do have the internet. but all these people involved, the only thing they could really do to Leprechaun's lines was just replace the, pronoun, article, whatever. Replace "my" with "me." That's all they did. That's all they did. I feel like they missed an opportunity to sprinkle in a little bit more. Magically sprinkle it in.
I do feel like "this old man" came from, that seems more Irish, but he changes it to "this old lad, he played pogo on my lung." Like, yeah,
it's pretty good.
I like all that, and I'm glad you referenced the bear trap. The bear trap just felt unusually mean and less fun. So I kind of want that trap. It doesn't fit in with everything else that he's got going on. So I think I want something a little more childish, even if it's just like, I don't know, like razor-bladed jump rope, something.
Yeah.
Something kind of evil, but still almost children's theme. Because we have a lot of goofy things. He's jumping out of refrigerators. He gets his hand stuck to the burning oven, and he's taking a spatula to it while yelling at them. So to just have a random bear trap, like, surely Jennifer Aniston mentions a bear, but are they really trying to, like, Chekhov's gun? Bear trap?
A bear trap. And then, they come in the kitchen, all the shoes are on the table and clean, and there's a mess on the floor. And Nathan's like, "Yeah, it could have been a bear come down."
Sure, Nathan.
Yeah, okay. You got it, Nathan. And then that's like I'm saying, is we're not actually, I think that bear trap was set by whoever had the property last. Like, I don't think that was connected to the leprechaun. But, he finds a way to capitalize in his position. I do, like, when he takes out the officer, that little hide and seek game in the woods, finally ending with, being on his shoulders and cracking his neck.
That was a good kill.
That's a good kill, and then you accompany that with, "Oh, officer, what's the crack?"
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. I am fully on board with this. I'm fine with this. And you know what, Dustin? I don't know if this is becoming a thing with us, but this is our second movie with a wheelchair chase. We did Born on the 4th of July, which is a completely different tone of movie. But here we are, joined once again with a wheelchair chase.
And this one is indoors, whereas the previous one was, I think, in Mexico.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes. Yes, there is a wheelchair fight. It's very sad. We're laughing, but it's because it's a tragic, awful, awful moment, and it's just bottom of the barrel.
Well,
but
check this out. I would say you said what the IMDb rating and what the Rotten Tomatoes ratings were. We know what generally people feel about this movie. I bet a lot of people would want to rewatch it because it's so much fun. Whereas this other movie we're referencing is one of those where I think once you watch it once, you're kind of fine with putting it on the shelf and leaving the shelf alone for a while.
Oh, yeah.
This is no matter how low these ratings you see them for whatever website, this is still great. I'm not going to say it's required watching, but if it's on, stay tuned in. It's fun.
And this is a movie that it took a long time to develop. Mark Jones started working on it shortly after Critters. He loved the idea of these small creatures that were funny in a rural setting, just terrorizing the town. So he saw the Lucky Charms commercial. He saw Critters. Interestingly enough, you referenced Gremlins, and I wasn't thinking about it, but Gremlins is 1984, so surely that's got some influence there too. Gremlins directly influenced Critters. So we've got all this working together, and he's writing a script, and he's trying to get things working, and there are some rewrites. He winds up getting a more funny and less cruel creature, but even still, it takes some funding. It takes him going to bat for Jennifer Aniston. She was out of nowhere. This was his casting. He says, hey, I want Jennifer Aniston to do this film. She tried out. He loved her. And so he went to bat for her. It's her first film. Warwick Davis, he was in a slump. He was coming off of Willow, and after Willow, he had no work. And so he was against getting typecast, which is funny because he winds up doing Leprechaun movies for like the next decade. But he was excited for this character. So they finally completed shooting in 1991. And then it takes 2 more years to hit theaters. So this is kind of a labor of love for a $1 million movie.
Yeah, and you have to consider this a win, right? Even though it's in the triple digits in our box office, turning $1 million into $8 million is a win. And it was a lot of work for Warwick Davis to be in the makeup chair for 3 hours at the beginning of the day, and then for 40 minutes at the end of every day. Like you said, the fight to have Aniston be cast, and then just you can tell that with, let's just say, 50% more of the budget, there were other things that could have been done that weren't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but some of the CGI for his appearances. Granted, it's the early 90s, so we still almost have that 80s Tron-type influence. But, yeah, you see that digitized leprechaun appearing, green skeleton type thing.
Yeah, there's some stuff that's like, it almost makes you feel like the movie's older than it is. That's not bad, but when you see like, oh, there's a potential that could not have been hit because the resources weren't there. Would anybody go back in time and say, let's change history by giving Leprechaun a $3 million budget instead of $1 million? No, nobody would do that. But I think we're happy with what we got. And yeah, but there's also some stuff where it's like maybe schedule of shooting prevented better ideas of how, for instance, for me, I think the climax of the movie, you do have some times where I think the story was written and it's sort of like, well, how do we end this? And I believe there's a moment right after Alex is about to have his head put into the bear trap by Leprechaun.
Yeah.
Ozzy breaks a couple of wood slats on the wall and comes in to distract the Leprechaun. How awesome would it have been for him to like bust through that wall like Kool-Aid Man, by the way? Because they're best friends.
Oh yeah.
Like how? Oh yeah. How that would have been awesome. But like, they already know you have to touch the Leprechaun with the 4-leaf clover. Leprechaun waddles past Jennifer Aniston, who's holding the 4-leaf clover, and just nobody told her like what to do when Warwick Davis runs by. So she's just kind of standing there holding it, like looking around. this isn't like, oh, they wrote the scene wrong. It was like, oh, they almost like maybe felt like rushed or something. There's nothing much going on. I think the end could have been far better than what it ended with, and we still have a great explosion.
Yes, which makes no sense.
It makes no sense, but it is a great looking explosion.
Yeah, I'm watching him pour all this gasoline down a well. I'm like, this is not how this is going to work. What are you doing, sir?
I don't know, but it looks great. Before I forget, and I just want to bring this up. What do you think about this little motley crew of Nathan, Ozzy, and Alex? Particularly Ozzy and Alex. I really think their relationship stands out in this movie.
I'm hard on kids. I'm notoriously hard on kids. But there's something about this, and I don't know, this might actually be punching down at Ozzy, but I like Alex's motivation of, hey, we're going to get this money to fix Ozzy's brain because Ozzy is slow. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, they're going to a pawn shop and trading in things, and they're going to do this for a medical procedure to make his buddy smarter. So rather than the obnoxious kid motivation, there are some moments like Alex gets under the hood and jiggles a cable, which isn't even a real cable on the truck, and all of a sudden it works. I'm like, you did nothing.
Right.
So he's supposed to be, it's another one of those 80s tropes that carried over into the early 90s where the kids are a whiz kid at something for no apparent reason. So we have that. But yeah, right. I like their friendship. I like the detours. As I was writing the plot summary, I'm like, it seems like Ozzy and Alex are the main characters here.
Right. Alex, it would almost have been better suited if they don't show what he does under the hood. Just give us 10 seconds of him just like moving his hands around and then like, okay, right. Sure. But yeah, I actually find myself annoyed at the 80s whiz kid. I definitely, I have my opinion on the stupid little kid in Valentine's Day.
Yep.
Whether he deserves to be in the movie or not.
He does not.
But like, but this particular kid, their relationship, like, it doesn't, like him being a painter savant in North Dakota that's smart and he wants a beer. He's acting like kind of like an adult, which is like, that's the shtick. It's pretty good. And it stands out as something unique about the movie. The connection where they find the gold, we can use this gold to fix your brain. They revisit that conversation later, and it's maybe the sweetest thing in this movie, maybe one of the sweetest things I've heard, where Tori's getting frustrated. I believe this is very close to that thing's a leprechaun and we have to find a way to stop it.
Yes.
But where like she's mad at Alex for doing something, and Alex is like, yeah, well, I mean, we said we weren't going to tell about the money. And Tori goes like, come on, you can't use the money to fix Ozzy's brain. And he looks up at her and says, I know that, but Ozzy doesn't. That's so sweet. So like occasionally you can have a kid performance that isn't cringeworthy or makes me dislike the movie. This one stood out. I really liked that little connection. And Ozzy apparently does something smart at the end. I think that was just a line, like a throwaway line. I don't know why they tried to make it about Ozzy being smart at the end. And then he gets him with the little finger trick. Like whatever. Like it's okay. I'm not mad
at that point. We've seen that he could be distracted if you just take off your Nikes and throw them.
Yep.
He's going to go polish them, whatever, So to your point about the end battle where Jennifer Aniston's sitting there like, what do we do? Yeah, take off your shoe and throw it at him. I guess we've seen it work.
Yeah, Austin Powers. Who throws a shoe? Well, you're fighting the leprechaun.
Yeah, so our director here, like I've said, is Mark Jones. He is responsible for not a whole lot. We've got Leprechaun and riding that success on to Leprechaun 2, 1994, which I think is good for Warwick Davis. He kind of regretted this role initially, and then, like, he likes the movie. I don't want to present that wrong. He says it's one of his favorite movies, but he regretted the negative attention it was getting. And then Jennifer Aniston's career blew up, and it became this cult classic. And so he's now happy about it getting exposure. But from 1994, we give Mark Jones another shot, and we have Rumpelstiltskin, and he goes away for 9 years. Mark Jones really wanted to get into TV, and he thought Leprechaun would be a good introduction into his TV career. He goes on to Quiet Kill, then there's Triloquist in 2008, and Scorned in 2013. Now, I've seen almost 1,000 unique horror movies. I have not seen these. So, any familiarity past the Leprechaun for you here?
No, just that Mark Jones was attached to like a producer that he liked. One of the producers on this movie, Doc Trippett or Dave Trippett. Kind of like
who the cop's named after.
It's who the cop's named after. It's the very first credit on when the credits roll as the executive in charge of production. And this guy, to answer your question, no, I'm unfamiliar with anything else that Mark Jones has directed. But it was just like his connection with this Trippett guy, who seemed to be behind all of these projects for fantasy or like ideas that maybe needed someone to believe in them. And he's the guy that did it. He was behind Wishmaster as well. Now, it wasn't Mark Jones, but like,
great movie.
It's just
Fun
sort
movie.
of like this executive producer who just kind of floated around Hollywood for a little bit, kind of gave, maybe he was the voice in the room to let ideas like this out. Otherwise, like, maybe it wouldn't have been done. Mark Jones, I think he didn't just direct, he wrote it too. So it's like this, this idea needed to come out, and had it come out today, maybe this would be like, a Netflix original or something. I'm not sure how it would be different. I don't know if it would be better. I think it needed to come out when it did, and it's like the perfect amount of mid-90s camp that it's I'm grateful that someone said to Mark Jones, do it. Wait, what was that? You said you were watching a commercial for cereal and you want to make a horror? Okay, sure. Yeah, I like that too. Show me, get back to me in 6 months. And then it becomes what it became.
You've got a lot of these type of camps towards the end of the 80s, early 90s. Child's Play is another one that comes to mind, where Chucky is often funny while he's killing something horribly. The later ones lean into the camp even more.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street does that as well. It goes from dark to a little more campy. Leprechaun, obviously, when we're going to space, a place where only they and Jason have gone. So yeah, it is a unique time.
Yeah, a unique time. I actually had that exact same conversation last night with one of my friends. I'm like, yeah, I'm about to do Leprechaun tomorrow. And I like to focus on the first of a horror series because it's like the initial idea before it becomes what it becomes. I think when people think about Freddy Krueger nowadays, they think of the comedic Krueger, not the Dreamweaver. Same with Chucky. I would bet that you've got a significant percentage of people that if you were to say, have you ever seen the movie Child's Play, they might not know what you're talking about. And then you're going to say, the Chucky movie. Oh, yeah. I feel as if the first installment of a series, sometimes it gets the idea across best. I think my number one movie that does this, even though there's a bunch of sequels, is Saw. The first Saw. I think a tour de force. Great movie. Everything else afterwards, forgettable to me. Which is why I liked, I probably wouldn't have been so eager to watch Leprechaun 3 with you.
That is completely fair. So I guess the final thing I'd like to touch on as far as Leprechaun, we've talked a lot about the set, the locations, even some of the 90s fare and the wardrobes, but a lot of horror movies will hide their killer until halfway through. This one, we get the Leprechaun full on pretty much right away. Do you like that? in this type of movie, or do you want a little more suspense? Do you want him running in shadows, and do you want a voiceover, and maybe not see him puppeteering Mrs. O'Grady?
I think the draw is the creature and the portrayal of it. I also think that this movie is feature length, but maybe just a little over 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I felt as if it could be maybe just 80 or 75. Like, I felt like they stretched some stuff out that didn't need to be. But I do think the screen time with Leprechaun elevates the experience. So I wouldn't have wanted... And you know, it goes for the same with some of those other franchises I mentioned. Gremlins, Ghoulies, Critters. Like, you kind of... Like, seeing them's fun. Other fun, like, horror, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You know, I'm just thinking of, like, stuff you... Like, the reason you're watching this movie is for the enemy. It's not really about the suspense or the thrill of anticipation. It's like, oh, cool, he's here again. That's like, that's fun. So yeah, I support it with this, but that doesn't mean I wholeheartedly support it for all things. I really do appreciate when I mean, there are some movies where you never see the enemy truly, yeah. And that's its own value. But for this, for styles like it, I appreciate that. Like, oh, we get it's called Leprechaun. Let's see him. Yeah,
I think because they nailed the makeup, and you talked about it being over 3 hours of makeup, because they nailed it, they earned that right to show him early. And I'm glad you referenced Killer Clowns from Outer Space, because it's kind of the same vein. So I just recently watched that. It's been within the last couple of years. And so I started out with it, and I'm like, okay, there's a clown joke. That's funny, haha. But then they kept coming, and they kept having unique little things with the clowns and turning a balloon animal into something vicious, or a pie with something vicious. It's like, you know what? I apparently have an unlimited appetite for clown jokes, and they've got a pretty good bag of tricks. So yeah, as long as they keep them fresh with Leprechaun jokes, I'm good here too. So yeah, we get tiny cars, we get little tanks, we get pogo sticks, we get limericks, things like that. Yeah, I'm all for that. Bring out all the jokes.
When Leprechaun hits the truck with the mini tank, I paused the movie and cheered. I was so happy, like, because what you when they show you that at the speed it's going, they didn't shoot it as if this thing is a rocket. They shot it as like, oh, this is like a little toy thing. I think he's going to poke the tires and make the air like have the tires go flat. I thought he was going to like use that pitchfork to like pry open the doors. No, apparently he hits it so hard that it does a full barrel roll. I was so happy. Actually, maybe 2 or 3 times in this movie, something happened so fun that I paused it just to like laugh it out. It wasn't like a, making fun of this movie laugh. It was just like, that was awesome. Yes. I loved it.
Now, see, for me, and this may say something very bad about my character, that moment for me is when he runs by, and I've missed this and all the other times, he runs by Nathan, and as he's running chasing Ozzy, he kicks Nathan in the leg, and he says, "How's your leg?" as he runs by.
Yeah. I didn't catch that until the second rewatch this time. So yeah, little things.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And the soundtrack, $1 million. We've got a generic soundtrack here, occasional ominous strings. We've got some nursery rhymes, but yeah, nothing to write home about. I think for me, I'm ready to hand out some superlatives for our 20-some% Rotten Tomato movie today. How about you, Dustin?
Yeah, there's got to be the best and brightest at the bottom of the barrel. I know I'm ready for this. I've got everything ready to go.
All right. So your MVP, director, actor, supporting actor, who you got?
I actually struggled with this, but I had to settle on Warwick Davis for his portrayal, for the character that he sort of injected into what this originally was going to be and how it ended up, his willingness to do the stunts. I do wish maybe they would have gotten him like a voice coach or something, or whatever the voice would have sounded more Irish, even if it was more stereotypical, but still thought it was his presence that brought this movie to what it is. So he's my MVP.
I couldn't agree more. He's enthusiastic in this role. His movements, his timing are impeccable, and he just seems like he's having a blast. So, yeah, I'm going to echo Warwick Davis.
Yeah.
Best supporting actor.
Mark Holton as the dimwit Ozzy. I would just say that he committed to what that character was supposed to be. Alex exemplified what his character was supposed to be. It was just also, he's a kid, kind of annoying. Nathan committed to what, that actor committed to what Nathan was supposed to be. Just sort of like, all right, I'm kind of like male lead protagonist, but I found Ozzy's portrayal great. So that's kudos to Mark Holton here.
Yeah, he could have gone. I kept thinking of Ben Stiller. I think it's Tropic Thunder of Don't Do Simple Jack. He could have gone just a very, very bad direction. But yeah, I like Ozzy in this movie. I like him eating the coin.
Right.
So for me, I actually thought Jennifer Aniston's acting was really rough throughout this movie. But I have to give it to Jennifer Aniston because I don't think this movie gets the attention it does without her. So, yeah, Jennifer Aniston and Luke Y. Thompson of the New York Times, he came back. This was his review. He was disagreeing with his peers. He said, "This is the perfect high-concept comedic slasher, and it's still Jennifer Aniston's best film to date."
Wow.
So she's taken some shots there.
Yeah.
I don't know that I go that far, but
right.
That's we'll catch some Jennifer Aniston catching strays over here. All right, hidden gem, Dustin.
I thought O'Grady's role late in the movie, divulging the method to defeating the Leprechaun while he's upside down hanging in the elevator.
I gets ragdoll, yeah.
Yeah. The actor's name is Shay Duffin, but like that was a decision and it was really good. So like that I mean it's 45 seconds, but like it's cool. And in that moment, like Jennifer Aniston, it seems like they put way too much plastic tears on her or whatever, but like that, I thought that was really cool. And his early part in the movie, I didn't actually love, but I did like that. So yeah, that's my little hidden gem. I think underappreciated his role, mainly because it's only the end that I like.
Yeah, they really didn't make clear in the beginning that he had a stroke.
Right.
And my initial thought was, okay, the Leprechaun just straight up killed him from the box with the last bit of power. But
Same here. Yep.
So mine is going to go to Vice President Dan Quayle, who receives a special thanks.
Uh-huh.
The special thanks in the credits is for expediting Warwick Davis's work visa. So
that's why.
Vice President Dan Quayle, thank you.
See, I saw that. I saw that, and I'm like, is this just being cheeky? I also noticed some other family members of that Doc Trippett guy. Made me think that he's like another driver behind what this was. So I had wondered why Dan Quayle was on there. I get it.
George Lucas is mentioned as well for helping out Warwick Davis, and even Warwick Davis's wife is sitting with a no makeup Warwick Davis in that cafe. So there's your other hidden gem. We have the Leprechaun himself out of makeup with his wife. So yeah, low budget, might as well. Hey, your wife's on set. You want her to be a cameo here?
Yeah.
Bring her in.
Well, speaking of low budget, I think there's less than 15 like named actors on the cast list, and there's very few scenes where there's really anybody. But that diner, like nobody says anything except for the actors. Even the waitress, she doesn't even say anything. So,
yes, yeah, we're solely there for stealing Jennifer Aniston's shoes.
Yep.
So, recast. Who were you recasting in our $1 million budget movie, Dustin?
Might seem odd considering I did think Mark Holton really played Ozzy well, but I'm recasting him with Chris Farley.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I think this could, especially once they decided to lean into the comedy a little bit more, you can have him play genuine. We've seen it. But if we're going to have him bumble and stumble anywhere, who else do you want doing it but him?
So now he's like the uncle instead of the slow friend?
I think he's still slow on the pickup.
Yeah.
I think he's still like having instead of David Spade be like his brains, he's got Alex, he's got the little kid as his brains.
Right.
You know, he falls down that hill when they come up on the truck. If like it's just a pratfall. If Chris Farley does that, the theater's erupting with laughter.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So I think like there's an objectively a better option. And hey, Mark Holton did a great job. Chris Farley, I think, objectively makes that a funnier role.
I love it. I want Chris Farley in this movie. I want him in a Leprechaun movie now. So I went with John Voldstad, who plays Joe. He's the pawn shop gold exchange owner.
Yeah.
I want him replaced with Danny Trejo. I feel like there's no B movie that you can't improve with Danny Trejo. And I think an interaction with the Leprechaun would just be much, much better.
Wow, that would be fun and completely like blindsided, like with my thought of that guy. Yeah, I definitely he does. Trejo needs to be beaten by the Leprechaun, and to have it be like, oh, this tough looking gang member guy is the one who runs the curio toy coin shop. Let me open my drawer that has one book in it, and it's my famous coins book. and it's Danny Trejo that has this book. Yeah, I love it.
All right. Best shot in The Leprechaun, Dustin.
After Ozzy and Alex find the gold in the truck, they walk back to the farmhouse, and it is an idyllic, beautiful, like tree among a meadow that almost looks like it belongs in the Shire. Almost like, how did they get this so absolutely right? How beautiful it is, and it doesn't really matter to the film at all. It's something that like, it's right after that little sweet moment. Saying, hey, we're gonna fix your brain, bud. And they walk back, and it's like, okay, things are. I get to those characters, like things are looking up, and the shot makes it seem like things are gonna be fine for them. They just found a bunch of gold. Which we learned from the coin owner, his rough estimate is that this bag of gold is $50,000. I don't know if that's enough to fix your brain, but that's what he says.
Yeah, not even in 1993 dollars. Yeah, you've got the Shire, the Leprechaun adjacent Hobbit horror movie. So yes, yeah, you've got that one evil, mean Hobbit. There's got to be one. It's probably a Baggins.
Or a Sackville Baggins.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I am going with the Leprechaun emerging from the well. He's horribly deformed after ingesting that clover. Like, if you're a kid seeing this movie, that's probably what's burned into your brain the most, is this deformed, shrieking leprechaun emerging from the depths of hell, which happens to be this well on the property. So that's my horror shot. That's what gets me pumped.
Yeah, I agree with you. That it's cool. Like, it's kind of like it's not done yet. Here he comes again. Yeah, and it elicited the question in me just now, was like, were you scared at any time during the movie? No, it's not the point. But for like a child, that would be like, oh God, oh no. So I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, I hear that a lot with Gremlins. The blender scene and the microwave scene are the things that scared children, whereas I'm like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. But it's talking to my friends that saw that movie much earlier than I did, like that traumatized me. I was scared of my blender for like the next 10 years. Yeah. So yeah.
I think one of the scariest things to adults is the idea that you might drop something into your garbage disposal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm reaching down there.
I hate those. I hate those scenes. I hate all of them. Best scene in Leprechaun.
It's when Leprechaun gets pulled over by Officer Trippett. And And I say that with a smile on my face because he just upgraded from the trike to the truck.
Yes.
Which is just, who else do you want doing that? Like driving a little truck around. Then there's the kind of the irony that like, would a leprechaun know to pull over for an officer of the law? Don't know, but he does.
Driving on the correct side of the road too.
Yeah. And so, but what the feeling you get is, oh no, this officer of the law is in for it. And what you get, it's true. Like, it's just, it puts you in like an anticipatory phase of like, what's going to happen here? And yeah, the cop runs away instead of getting back in his cruiser. He's, the leprechaun does say something weird, which is something like, it's not nice to make fun of leprechauns, which is the second instance of him saying to someone that it's not nice to do something when the whole idea of a leprechaun is to trick you. Like, it's just, it all comes together in, I mean, there's a lot of fun scenes, but like this one, I was just like, kind of like on the edge of the roller coaster dip. I was like, what's coming? And it's fun.
Yes, leading to our game of deadly hide and seek.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I think it can be summed up in 3 words. Pogo, stick, death.
Pogo, stick, death.
Everything about it. The song being changed, just the gleefulness on Warwick Davis's face as he's jumping up and down.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I want more pogo stick deaths.
Yeah.
This has to happen.
Yeah, and it fits with the, like, oh, this guy likes toys. This guy likes fun things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in the gold collector shop, there happens to be a pogo stick. I'm going to overlook that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually missed the sign on the window, like what it's called. It's called like Joe's Coins Collectibles. And I was just like, why does this guy exist here? Well, it's fun. He needed to die.
Yeah. His sole purpose is just, he is cannon fodder for the leprechaun, and that's fine. Best wardrobe or makeup moment?
Tough. I think makeup. I mean, I think the winner has to be the makeup for Leprechaun is incredible, and it took a long time. And in fact, Warwick Davis would say that he's actually like they became close friends every day, just talking about like things besides the movie. Like they spent a lot of time together, so they became friends. But I want to say Ken Olandt, the actor who played Nathan, his hair is incredible. So that's I had to mention it. He's got great hair.
Yeah. Let's revive his career. It's been a solid 30 years. Get this man, if he's probably still has that majestic head of hair, get this man in some more movies where he can just spout exposition.
Yeah, if anything, give him a Pert Plus commercial or something.
Yeah, there we go. Just for men. It's fine.
Nice.
Yeah, for me, you hit the makeup, but I'm going to hit the costume. I think everything on the leprechaun, even down to his shoes. I know you didn't have as much love for the shoes. Everything for me is so on point and just burned in my brain from childhood and iconic. So if you're going to do a movie about a magical creature, get everything right. So we're not sitting there laughing at a costume or something, even though he's meant to have fun and be laughed at a little bit. The costume's great. So everything about the wardrobe and makeup department with regard to Leprechaun, that's where all the budget went.
Yeah.
That's what I'm praising.
And he looks great. Yeah.
So in a movie with 28% Rotten Tomato, critics are killing it. You only get to change one thing, Dustin. How are you improving Leprechaun?
It's been hard to not mention this throughout the podcast, but if I feel as if like the mimicry thing was awesome and it seemed lifted from Terminator 2. If we're going to lift anything from older movies, I'd love the idea if Alex, the little boy savant, steals a little page out of Kevin McAllister's book and kind of sets up an elaborate trap for the leprechaun. Considering this is a thing that American families do with their kids, let's trap a leprechaun. if they could set up like an elaborate trap to get him, maybe the bear trap's involved, maybe an oversized, like comedic looking sledgehammer or something to where like there could be a climax with the clover, a trap, and then maybe finally like after it jams, Nathan's able to get the shotgun blast off and it's like a combo. I think the end, even though you had that wonderful explosion that made no sense, I think the end needed a little something. And so I think that would be pretty fun. If this kid's a whiz kid, let's have him do something more.
Okay, all right. I can get behind it. I set a trap for the leprechaun. Maybe even, I don't know, give Ozzy some epicac. Have him throw up the coin and just have it sitting out.
Yeah.
Who knows? What?
Oh, that's
whatever.
smart. That's good.
Yeah, I'm for this. I'm for Home Aloneing a leprechaun.
Yes.
Yep. For me, I felt like they leaned in a little too much to Jennifer Aniston being this ritzy city girl without it really going anywhere. Like a lot of times when you have these lines of, hey, I don't kill living things, I don't do this, I don't do that, it leads to a character change where she has to. So there've been a lot of horror movies where someone's very against guns. I just watched the newest Texas Chainsaw, where one of the lead characters was involved in a school shooting, so she had an aversion to guns, but she had to pick one up to save herself in the movie. They had all this exposition with Jennifer Aniston, and it amounted to nothing. You know,
Yeah.
So remove a bunch of the unnecessary stuff, like the vegetarian, women's enlightenment speech, all of these weird things that she's just spouting like a checklist for no good reason. I don't think she really needs a reason to dislike North Dakota. She's a young, attractive teenager. It's obvious why she doesn't want to be in North Dakota, as our North Dakota listening base just vanishes right here. But, you know, she's from the big city. We don't need other reasons, I guess, is what I'm harping on.
I would say to tune in sometime this year, North Dakotans, to get your redemption, but you know we're never talking about your state again, so see you never.
Fargo. We have our Fargo episode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
So,
that one.
Yeah, listen to that one. No, it's just, you know, teenagers are obnoxious. So
No, see, we
take them out.
brought them in with the Fargo episode, and now now you and I are expelling them away.
Yes, now that you're addicted, we're going to tell you what we really think about. No,
I agree with you. I think what may be happening here is that you have a writer or you have someone who's like, people will like us making fun of this type of person, and that's all they were doing. And it really didn't matter whether she had that conviction or not. It was just like her saying that she wanted a watercress salad and an Evian water is apparently a joke.
yeah, it absolutely was. I'm just trying to elevate the joke a little bit, give it a reason. Like, she either kills the leprechaun, she has to. I like the slingshot, though. As goofy early 80s, 90s as that is, I still like a slingshot with a 4-leaf clover and gum.
Yeah, not bad.
Best quote, and I actually felt like there's quite a bit here. What do you got?
Okay, so I was thinking, as I mentioned to you earlier, like all these like Irish like phrases and quotes and stuff. And see, I seem to remember Leprechaun rhyming more, but maybe that's just from like some of the clips from the other Leprechaun movies, as opposed
He does
to
do it a lot more.
Yeah,
they lean into it more.
I think they lean into it more. So, really, my best quote is, I felt as if the best like Leprechaun line wasn't given by Leprechaun, it was given by Alex, because it's like a little rhyme. He's talking about, like, I think Ozzy says, "Could you kill a leprechaun?" Says, "Ozzy, you can kill anything. You just got to know how to do it. Now, give me a 357 Magnum, press it to the little green critter's temple, and blam. Brains and guts and oozing cruddy stuff dripping all down its head. The guy is gone with a capital dead." That's such a Leprechaun line. So, like, I felt like he kind of won the quote off.
I like that. Yes, for me, it's Jennifer Aniston gets every. I keep calling her Jennifer Aniston. She has a name in this movie. It's Tori. She keeps declaring things incorrectly, like it's over, and then they ask, "Is he dead?" After he got the shotgun blast, she goes, "Yeah, he's dead," and he just pops up. He goes, "Not a chance." Diddly-diddly-dee.
Yeah.
And it's that extra. I mean, "Not a chance" is great, just popping up, but the diddly-diddly-dee is. I love the tee-hee-hee.
Yeah. I think he follows it up with, a deedly deedly dee, a leprechaun is me. It's like, yeah, we know. But yeah, she does get it wrong a lot.
Yeah, she declared it over at least 2 times prior to it actually being over. And then they give her that line one more time. She's like, "It's over." I'm like, "I don't believe you." So,
Yeah.
it's the same with you. You mentioned the great line where she's like, "It's a leprechaun," and there's got to be. This was the culmination of writing. They actually did circle around because all throughout the movie, she's telling poor Ozzy, it's not a leprechaun.
Yeah.
So they do actually have some mature writing there where they're like, up, wait for it. Now it's a leprechaun.
The sheer seriousness. That thing is a leprechaun, and we've got to find a way to stop. I love it, man.
I'm tired of these mother
Exactly. Yeah.
It is right up there in that pantheon. All right. For a bonus episode, this has been a lot of fun, but now it is time to give our rating to Leprechaun. We've talked a lot about critics' ratings, but Dustin, how are you going to rate a movie such as this?
So I think you can tell I got a lot of enjoyment out of this. But there's also a lot that I felt was lacking or poorly done. It might have been budget, it might have been writing, it might have been line delivery. There was stuff that I still feel like the value of this movie is sort of understanding that it's not great, like knowing that it's not great and going into it anyway.
Right.
That's what I believe. And so I think I want to give this like a generous 2.5 stars. I think it's like, as far as like a successful story, I think it falls a little bit. We have some people getting hurt. We don't have that many deaths. I don't know. We mentioned a whole bunch of ways to make it better, and each one of these ways is things that I really feel like the movie needs, not like from us, but just somebody needed to make it better when they were making it. And the things that got it up to a 2.5 is the things it does well. So this is, I couldn't give it like a middle of the road ranking of 3, but every bit of those 2.5 stars, I feel like it earned from not like maybe it wasn't set up for success and it just kind of, a 5th round pick becoming an all-star. That's what this was to me. So 2.5 stars, it's like, it's a loving 2.5 stars.
Yeah, something can be a bad movie and still enjoyable. So that's a perfectly appropriate rating for Leprechaun. I have often said, I'm not a film critic. I'm not obligated to give a score based on cinematic perfection. A lot of times I give a score based on what makes me happy. So with that having been said, this is a 3.5 for me. So please don't go back and look at some cinema masterpieces or other things that have far more than $1 million budget and be like, but you gave that movie a 3 and Leprechaun is 3.5. It's apples to oranges. You can't compare them. This movie is fun for me. I like revisiting it. It's not a cinematic masterpiece, but I can 100% have a great time, turn off my brain, watch hilarious carnage. I like these types of movies. So the Critters, the Gremlins, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Leprechaun, these are my happy places.
Yeah.
So this is a movie that I was just over the moon to do. I'm glad it was a fun movie for you. Not putting down the 2.5 because that's probably where it should be. That may even be generous because I'm overlooking a lot to get to my 3.5.
Well, and you just said, like, you mentioned moons. We've talked about pots of gold. I'm doing this from the top of my head. I didn't write this down, but what do we have in Lucky Charms? Hearts, stars, horseshoes, clovers, and blue moons, pots of gold, rainbow, and me red balloons.
Yes.
It's a 2.5 star movie, but you know what? It's a 4 clovers.
I do feel like they got very lucky that Jennifer Aniston got very, very famous very quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, she did.
Sometimes that's what happens. We're not going to do a movie selection for next time because this was a bonus episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Dustin, thanks for joining me as always. It's fun to talk about any movie that has wheelchair chases. I hope our next one has an exciting one as well.
It's becoming a criterion collection of what we must have.
Yep. And thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us because we want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. That really helps us get some visibility, helps other people find our podcast, hopefully enjoy our stupidity as well. Give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at movie_retro, email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun, but it's not always free, so we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page, patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. Any contribution is really appreciated, goes towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening to us, be good to each other, and watch more movies. Dustin?
Drink down the wine, cups should not rest. I'll sing you songs, put your ears to the test. Power and wealth are to no avail, let only our drinking prevail. A sober man and the sages are both lost through the ages, but all our brave drinkers never shall die. Even the king couldn't stop my drinking. Let's drink a toast to our ship that's sinking.